After months of relentless airstrikes and a brutal ground offensive, Israel claimed it was dismantling Hamas. But the reality on the ground tells a different story. Booby traps, ambushes, guerrilla strikes, even the taking of Israeli captives. Hamas isn't just surviving, it's adapting, resisting, and fighting back. So what's the secret behind this resilience? Is Hamas truly standing alone? Or is there a deeper network, one that stretches from Tehran to Istanbul, Doha to Sana'a, keeping it alive? In this video, we dive deep into the global support system that arms, funds, shelters, and strategizes with Hamas, and explore why this group refuses to yield, even when everything around it burns. To understand how Hamas continues to fight, even under siege, we have to look beyond Gaza's borders, because its real strength doesn't just lie in tunnels or tactics, but in the allies operating behind the scenes. And no ally is more influential or more dangerous than the Islamic Republic of Iran. If Gaza is the battlefield, Tehran is the war room. For over 2 decades, Iran has quietly transformed Hamas from a local resistance group into a regional actor more coordinated, more lethal, and far harder to eliminate. It began in the early 1990s, when Iran first saw potential in Hamas as a tool to pressure Israel, without directly engaging in war. The partnership grew steadily. By the time Israel withdrew from Gaza in 2005, Iranian advisors were already helping Hamas set up weapons factories, training camps, and communications hubs. But the real turning point? 2006. Hamas wins the Palestinian elections. Isolated by the West, it turns fully toward Iran, and Tehran answers. Weapons flowed across tunnels from Sinai. Funding, tens of millions annually. And perhaps most importantly, knowledge. The Quds Force, Iran's elite military unit, trains Hamas commanders in explosives, drone warfare, and psychological ops. Hezbollah in Lebanon acts as the middleman, a kind of regional military academy. The result? Hamas evolves. No longer just a group firing homemade rockets. It now builds underground cities, deploys guided missiles, and executes complex ambushes, all under Israeli surveillance. Iran doesn't just support Hamas, it helps Hamas survive. But Iran is not Hamas' only lifeline. If Gaza is the battlefield and Tehran the war room, then Istanbul is the boardroom. A place where strategies are drawn under the cover of diplomacy. Since at least 2011, Hamas leaders have operated freely inside Turkey. Saleh al-Aruri, the deputy chief of Hamas's political bureau and one of the founders of the group's armed wing, the Qassam brigades lived in Turkey as a safe haven after being expelled from Palestine. Ismail Haniyeh has been based inside Turkey with direct government support. Both got Turkish citizenship and passport. Turkey is also involved in financing Hamas, often through a middleman or an NGO. U.S. Department of the Treasury press release dated December 13, 2023, contains 3 Turkish-based names: Harun Mansour, Yaqub Nasser al-Din, Jihad Mohammed Shakir Yagmur, and Mehmet Kaya, involved in funds transfer from Turkey to Gaza. Erdogan's government, driven by a blend of Islamist solidarity and geopolitical ambition, has tolerated and at times facilitated this presence. While Israeli intelligence has protested repeatedly, Turkish officials have either denied the claims or brushed them off as political attacks. And the same is true for Turkey. Turkey has accused Israel of espionage within its geographical borders. But even the best strategies need fuel, and that fuel is money. Hamas gets its funding from around the world, but the most prominent of these is Qatar. In 2007, the Emir of Qatar, Sheikh Hamad, visited Gaza and pledged $400 million in support. Since then, Qatar has pumped in $1.8 billion in support to Hamas-governed Gaza. Doha also provides fuel to Gaza that ends up in Hamas hands. Just like Istanbul, Doha hosted top Hamas leaders, including Ismail Haniyeh and Sheikh Mashal bin Hamad Al Thani. Hamas opened its political office in Doha in the year 2012 as an aftermonth to the Arab Spring, on U.S. request to open a communication channel with Hamas. Following Hamas's refusal to accept hostage deal, the U.S. pressurized Qatar to expel Hamas's leaders from its territory. Qatar's relationship with Hamas has always been a delicate balancing act, a mix of ideology, diplomacy, and cold strategic interest. On one hand, Doha publicly condemns terrorism and positions itself as a U.S. ally, even hosting the largest American military base in the Middle East. On the other, it bankrolls Gaza, shelters Hamas officials, and positions itself as an indispensable mediator in every Israel-Gaza flare-up. This duality gives Qatar leverage. The West tolerates its Hamas ties, not because it approves, but because it needs Qatar to keep channels open when bombs fall and hostages are taken. It's why, even after U.S. officials demanded Hamas leaders be expelled, Qatar delayed, calculating the diplomatic fallout, weighing its regional alliances, and maintaining just enough ambiguity to stay relevant. And so, while Tehran supplies the weapons and Istanbul offers safe harbor, it is Doha that funds the survival, quietly, consistently, and often with Western complicity. This is where we reveal how Hamas is part of a regional resistance bloc, not just a lone actor in Gaza. We'll include Houthis, Hezbollah, and emerging ideological state supporters in North Africa and Asia. But Iran, Turkey, and Qatar aren't the only players. Across the region, a wider web is activating, from the mountains of Yemen to the outskirts of Tunis. Militias, states, ideologues, all feeding into what Tehran calls the axis of resistance. Hezbollah is widely considered the largest, most powerful faction within Iran's axis of resistance, with one lakh military personnel and a wide range of rocket missile and drone capabilities. Hezbollah took active part in Syrian civil war, alongside Iran and Russian forces from 2012 to 2020. Since October 2023, Hezbollah has fired rockets and anti-tank missiles across Israel's northern border, stretching Israeli forces and forcing them to split their defenses. The day after Hamas's Operation Al-Aqsa Storm, Hezbollah entered the fray by attacking Israeli military positions, ensuring its support to Hamas and resistance. And then there are the Houthis, once a localized rebel group in Yemen, now a regional disruptor. Armed with Iranian missiles and drone tech, they've launched strikes on Israeli targets and disrupted global shipping lanes, all in stated solidarity with Gaza. From Libya to Algeria, ideological currents echo the call for resistance. In Tripoli, Muslim Brotherhood-linked factions have long supported Hamas's cause, while remnants of jihadist networks openly celebrate its attacks on Israel. Across the border, Algeria's Islamist parties, especially the Movement of Society for Peace, hail Hamas as a symbol of anti-Zionist struggle. Even the state itself refuses normalization with Israel, offering rhetorical support to what it calls legitimate resistance. They may not be launching rockets, but in the ideological war, their voices fuel the fire. This decentralized, ideologically connected front is what makes Hamas so hard to uproot. It's no longer just a militant group. It's part of a transnational, evolving asymmetric challenge. How Netanyahu's divide-and-rule strategy kept Hamas alive? In a now infamous 2019 Likud party conference, Netanyahu told allies, "Anyone who wants to thwart the establishment of a Palestinian state needs to support bolstering Hamas. This is part of our strategy." Israel's former prime ministers Ehud Barak and Ehud Olmert have criticized Netanyahu's approach. Barak said Netanyahu kept Hamas alive and kicking, while Olmert claimed Israel did everything to downgrade the Palestinian Authority and to boost Hamas. Israeli historian Adam Raz, Akavat Institute, argues Netanyahu's government routinely approved Qatar's cash transfers to Gaza, helping sustain Hamas governance and fragment Palestinian unity. From roughly 2018 to 2021. Millions of US dollars, often transported in suitcases, were sent from Doha to Gaza via Israeli crossings. Convoys were reportedly escorted by Israeli intelligence, Mossad, and Israel knew Hamas might divert funds to military use. In a January 2024 statement, EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell accused Israel of having financed the creation of Hamas, contradicting Netanyahu's denials. From Beirut to Sana'a, from Misrata to Kuala Lumpur, a sprawling alliance has emerged, one that sees Hamas not as an isolated actor, but as part of a larger resistance front, decentralized, asymmetric, and deeply ideological. It's not a conventional army, not a formal alliance, but it works. And that may be Israel's greatest challenge. You can bomb Gaza. You can assassinate Hamas leaders. But how do you kill a network that stretches across borders, ideologies, and generations? Benjamin Netanyahu's gamble to fragment the Palestinians and use Hamas as a counterweight may have worked for a time, but now that strategy has spiraled beyond control. So as the war rages on and ceasefires collapse, a new question emerges. Is Hamas the enemy, or just the face of something much larger? And if this is only one head of the Hydra, how many more are waiting in the shadows?